Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos, and I'm a life coach, relationship coach, and breakup coach. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing your ex is suffering too. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Subscribe to my weekly support emails. The link is in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing your ex is suffering too. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you would doubt that your ex is struggling. But you might be surprised. In today's podcast, I'm discussing the 3 reasons why your ex could be suffering too. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is they felt pain to get here. So be honest, do you think your ex is suffering? Type a quick yes or no in the comments. Let me know, do you believe genuinely that your ex is suffering? Just type yes or no in the comments, and we will have a look what most people believe. So point number 1 is they felt pain to get here. And this is something that as a dumpee, you might not really be thinking of. But it's important to fully understand the picture, fully understand your ex the dumper's mindset. Now at some point, both of you were in a happy, loving relationship. Maybe it was only a few weeks ago, perhaps it was more than a year ago, but there was a time when you were both together in a loving relationship and you would have both felt a high level of romantic emotional attraction for one another. Now sadly, for various potential reasons, this level of attraction dropped in your ex-dumper's mind. And when it hit the necessary low point, this is when they actioned the breakup. But the important part regarding point number 1, the important part of this is to consider that they sadly lost that attraction. Because losing attraction is because they were feeling unhappy. Now you might think, well, my ex had no reason to feel unhappy. But it's not about what you think, it's about what they felt. Now the reason they felt unhappy, and to the degree that they felt unhappy, well, that would differ from person to person. But what we can say is that it must have been fairly severe in their mind to end the relationship. Now, even if you think, well, I didn't do anything wrong, it's not always as obvious as you cheated on your partner, they find out, they are unhappy. That is quite obvious. Often, it is a lot more subtle. Often, it is the things that we can't even really explain more of, well, exactly, a feeling. So your ex-dumper got to the stage where they didn't feel the relationship was working for them. They didn't believe that going forward, they would feel fulfilled. They didn't believe that they would feel satisfied. They didn't believe that they would feel happy. And that is the point. If they didn't believe they would feel these feelings going forward, that is why they needed to end the relationship. Now that doesn't mean they didn't have a great time with you in the past. It doesn't mean they didn't love you. Some dumpees disbelieve their ex-dumper ever loved them by the way they have now felt discarded. But the reality is, feelings change. Before you and your now ex met, it is possible that you loved someone else, just as they potentially did as well. So as you can see, maybe you loved somebody else in your past, then you loved your ex, and there was a transition. Whether you were dumped in your first relationship or whether you were actually the dumper, what we can see is feelings change, evolve, develop. They come, and unfortunately sometimes they can go. But what it also means is that they can come back. And that is why I believe there is always a possibility of reconnecting with an ex. Whether it happens, well, we can't guarantee this. There is no 100% guaranteed way to get an ex back. But you can definitely do things to increase your chance of success. Similarly, you can do things to cause further problems and decrease your chances. And if and when your ex-dumper comes to a conclusion that they would like to reconnect, it doesn't mean that you have to jump at it either. Because again, you may have changed your thoughts and your feelings. That is the point. Feelings are in the moment. We feel in the moment. We speak in the moment. And at the time of your breakup, your ex-dumper felt that they were suffering. Whether it was for an obvious reason or something more subtle, they felt they were suffering to the point where they didn't believe their future was going to be as bright as it could be if they took a different path. So it's almost irrespective if us as a dumpee don't necessarily believe or understand their reasoning. It is their choice, their mindset. We don't have to fully understand it, but we do have to respect it. So your ex was suffering before the breakup even took place. Maybe you were also suffering. Perhaps you were unaware. Perhaps you were blissfully unaware, thinking that your relationship was fantastic. And then sadly, the breakup took place and it really, really hurt you. It damaged you. You felt discarded. You felt pain like never before, perhaps, because it is grief that you're experiencing. But what we have to recognize is that for your ex-dumper to make that decision, they were also suffering. Maybe it was outwardly, maybe it was clear in hindsight, perhaps they kept it in their mind. We don't know for certain. Maybe you have an inkling, maybe you're fairly confident, perhaps you still don't know 2 years down the line why it took place. But when we consider in today's podcast about the fact that your ex, the dumper, is suffering too, we have to recognize that they were suffering before they actioned the breakup. They were suffering, perhaps even you were suffering, because if you felt the relationship was going great and they believed it was not what they were looking for in the future, you were happy and they weren't. And that's a perspective that sometimes as a dumpee, we don't necessarily really look into enough depth. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please give this video a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is they didn't get all that they wanted. Now as a dumpee, we often believe that our ex-dumper has got everything they wanted. They made a choice and they got it. They wanted to end the relationship and it happened. You as a dumpee didn't want it to end and sadly it still did. So you don't believe you got what you wanted, but you do believe they got what they wanted. But they didn't get everything that they wanted. And this is where, again, we have to look a little deeper. So for instance, let's say you have children together. Now I would suggest that if you've now split up, you no longer live as a household. Sometimes that happens, but I would suggest it's quite rare. Generally speaking, you will no longer be living together. So what does that mean? Well, it means for you, unfortunately, you don't see your children all the time anymore. And that's heartbreaking. But what we might not consider is that your ex-dumper doesn't live with their children full time either anymore. Now, perhaps you're in a situation where the children predominantly live with your ex. And maybe you are in a situation where predominantly they don't live with you. And that is horrible. Now, that isn't necessarily the way round it would be, but it might be. But even if your ex-dumper is the person who generally has the children live with them, what it means is it is still generally. It is not all the time. It is not every single day. It is not every single moment. And this is why your ex-dumper can still feel that pain of no longer living with their children full time. Now, perhaps you don't have children together, but you did live with one another. Maybe your ex-dumper moved out. Maybe you both had to move out because you had to sell the house. Maybe this is something which is really affecting you, and understandably so. But we also have to consider that your ex-dumper may be now in a position where they no longer live in the house that they loved. Maybe they really, really loved this place, this location, this house, and now they don't, now they can't. Now, whether we are talking about a house or children and the whole situation, you might think, well, they have caused this. And you are right. They did make the decision to cause these problems and this trauma that both of you are now feeling. But if we link this back to point number 1, they did this because they were suffering. They were not feeling happy in your relationship for whatever reason. They decided to action the breakup when the level of romantic emotional attraction hit that necessary low point. And when it did, they took action and everything went wrong from their perspective and from your perspective from that moment. But they are doing it because they believe that in the future, they would be happier outside of your relationship. And this is where I can understand as a dumpee why you might be thinking, well, they've caused this destruction. They've caused all these problems. I don't feel sorry for them. But if we consider that they've done it from a place of suffering, they've done it from a place of pain, and if you actually recognize that they have made this choice because in their mind it is the lesser of two evils, they have potentially given up the possibility of living with their children 24/7. They have potentially given up the possibility of living in a house that they really loved. And that is not the only things. They may have lost friends over this situation. The breakup may have caused a scenario where certain friends took your side, certain friends took their side, and they have lost friends forever, again, just as you may have done. And although this is due to their action, we have to see once more that they did this due to the suffering pre-breakup. And if they have done all of this, believing it is the lesser of two evils, it really highlights how much suffering they may have felt that we discussed in point number 1 pre-breakup. Now, this isn't about trying to feel sorry for your ex. I'm not trying to make you feel sorry for their actions. But what I am trying to do is just highlight the fact that they are not necessarily living their best life. They're not necessarily living a life full of excitement and joy and happiness. They're likely suffering, certainly to a certain degree. And if we recognize their position as not being all singing and dancing, sometimes it can make the position of a dumpee a little bit easier as well. Because if we believe that they are living an amazing life, it can really pull us down. But let's recognize the truth. The reality is they're probably suffering. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. This is the best and diamond level of support that I can provide. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the buildup of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is the mystery of you. So today we're speaking about your ex-dumper is suffering too. And one of the points that you might not even really consider is the fact that you can create a scenario where them wondering about you means that they suffer. Now, I'm not suggesting that you deliberately make your ex-dumper feel pain. This isn't about them. This is just about you living your best life. And if a byproduct of that is them starting to miss you and in some respects suffering due to that thought of thinking, maybe I've made a mistake, maybe I made the wrong decision. Well, if they're suffering that way because you are living your best life, well, so be it. It's not like you're deliberately trying to be cruel, you're just focusing on you. They made the choice to end the relationship. You can't beg them back, but what you can do is focus on you rather than them. And if you improve every day, become a version 2.0 of yourself, joining new classes, groups and clubs, making new connections, being the type of person that others want to spend time with, if you do these things, then your ex-dumper is more than likely starting to wonder about you. Now, the mystery might come because they literally hear nothing from you. If you've implemented my version of a no contact rule, that is something which could easily happen in their mindset. But perhaps they do know a few things due to social media, mutual friends, and the things that they hear are good about you, exciting about you. Now this adds the mystery. So the mystery could come from hearing nothing, or the mystery could come from hearing good things that perhaps they never expected. Either way, if they are feeling that wonder, that mystery about what you are doing and why you are doing it, this can create intrigue and it can develop into them missing you. And that is what we want if we want to try to get an ex back. This is how they can reach out to you. This is how they can get to a stage of where they regret their decision to end the relationship. So, as I said, this isn't about deliberately trying to make your ex-bedumper suffer. But if they start to suffer because they think, you know what, I've actually made a mistake, well, that's not a bad thing from your perspective because it means they are closer to reaching out and wanting to reconnect. Now, if you were someone who begged your ex, as I mentioned a moment ago, you can't really beg your ex back. It's not likely to help you. But there are some people who worry about the effect of begging their ex, the fact that they did it, and what does it actually mean? Well, if you begged your ex for a second chance and now you're worried, and if you're watching on YouTube right now, then click the link on screen, because if you begged your ex and want them back, clicking that link right now will help you understand.